大家好，我是乡议院的司员职 Steve Hansen。乡议院是一个收集汉语方言口述故事的网站。我们收集的故事有的来自中国各个村庄社区，有的也来自世界上其他国家的华人移民聚居地。接下来我就用我自己的方言美式英语来讲，好吧？So, why Phonemica? A lot of people have asked us this question. The goal of Phonemica is to paint an audio landscape of the beauty and enormity of Chinese. And we're doing this through two ways. One is through stories from speakers, and the other is with exploration of the language itself. I'm going to start today with stories from speakers, and specifically with stories from great-grandmothers, because great-grandmothers are a big part of why we've created Phonemica. Here's my great-grandmother, Bessie Hansen. And this is my father's mother. You'll notice I carry her picture with me, right? Partly because she's very dear to my heart, and partly because I have some notes on the back to help me remember what to say. I consider myself very fortunate to have recordings of my great-grandmother. And right now I'm going to have her introduce herself from those recordings.
I was born in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, November 8, 1882.
November 8th, 1882. These recordings were made in the 1970s. My great-grandmother passed away when I was only 6 years old, but I still remember sitting at my great-uncle's house in Mount Pleasant, Utah, sitting on the floor next to my great-grandmother, and she's sitting there telling this story about a prairie fire that almost destroyed their home in Fort Yates, North Dakota. And right now, because her children, so my grandparents, her children took the time to record her stories, I get to share with you, my friends here in Shanghai, I get to share her telling the story in her own words.
The prairie fire got so near, we could hardly breathe. So we began throwing things down the cellar. Anything that we could get hold of, pillows, quilts, chairs, anything that we could get through that door, we threw down, thinking if the house went.
Well, the house did not burn down, and the story goes on that the prairie fire burned right around the edge of the house, but it didn't burn it down. This kind of story is half the reason that we've created Phonemica. We want a place to share and archive stories, spoken word stories that would otherwise be lost. The kinds of stories that my grandmother tells are very everyday stories. They're babies getting sick, babies dying. She tells a story about a local man who got drunk and threatened to kill my grandfather. But they're everyday stories, and each one of you has a great-grandmother, 4 great-grandmothers to be exact. And what would you give to be able to listen to her everyday stories told in her own words? This opportunity exists now, and for me, the opportunity to hear the spoken language in the words of grandparents and great-grandparents it's as sacred as going to visit the house where your great-grandmother grew up. And that brings us to the second half of Phonemica, which is spoken language. So I've always been interested in spoken language. I studied several languages before I started studying Chinese in the late 90s probably. But I never thought that spoken language would become this obsession that it's become, an all-consuming kind of thing. But here's what happened. In 2007, my company sent me to Beijing to work. And at that time, my Chinese was okay, and I started talking to people. And what I saw there was a revelation. It was completely different from what I expected. So in Beijing, you get into a taxi, and you talk with a cab driver from Yanqing, right? And you find here, Yanqing, 30 kilometers outside of Beijing, and they have their own distinct dialect. They don't even say Yanqing, they say Yanqing, right? It's a different world. Or you talk to the store, the people who work in Beijing, the clerks, you talk to the barbers, and you find that each one of them has almost like a secret life, right? That they call up on the phone and they talk to their parents in their Fangyan. They talk to their childhood friends in their Fangyan. And of course, for you Chinese, you might think, oh, well, of course, yeah, I know, so what, right? The situation exists. But for an English speaker coming from the United States, this situation is completely unexpected, completely different. In the United States, we have, well, I'll show you a dialect map. So this is a dialect map. You can see we have, if you go from the northeast to the south to the west, we have different dialects of English, and we talk about them, but they're not all that different. It's like Putonghua in China. So if you take Dongbei Putonghua, and you compare that to Taiwan the Guoyu, right? There's some difference, but it's not big differences, and it's completely unlike this situation that we have mapped on Phonemica. So each one of those little flags, the different color represents a different dialect, and each one of those many of them are completely different from Putonghua, many of them are completely different from each other. And that situation simply doesn't exist in American English. So that to me was a complete surprise. In 2007, the other surprise that I had was that I saw, along with the social change and economic development of China, you've got language change on a massive scale, unprecedented scale. So you have the situation where often you have some children who can't speak to their grandparents because of language change. And sometimes it's very natural. So if you get a husband from Hubei and a wife from Guangdong, they get together and they speak Putonghua, right? And so naturally the kids speak Putonghua. And so or sometimes you have a situation too where a parent doesn't want to speak to their child in Fangyan, because maybe they want the child to grow up with the social and economic advantages of Putonghua. So regardless of the reasons, what we have now in China is just language change on an unprecedented scale. And I started realizing that, and then in 2009, Kellen, my partner on Phonemica, he approached me with the idea, hey, we should collect recordings of every Chinese dialect. Yeah, we should. Who wouldn't want to do that, right? But then the question was, so how are we going to do that? And as we thought about this, we thought, well, we, Kellen and I, are not going to do this. It's too big. It's impossible. But we, all the people that we have met and will meet who enjoy Fangyan, who love their own Fangyan, who want to share them with the world, we could do it together. And so what we've built with Phonemica is a platform. It's a place to share these stories. So it's user-created content. So what this is content created by you, the speakers of the Fangyan. And we think it's the right approach. It's not always easy. It might look easy, like you look at the map and you're like, oh yeah, you just wait and the recordings come in. But what user-created content means is it means hundreds of people, all 300 of those people on the map, they have to learn how to make a good recording, right? And sometimes making a good recording is not easy. You have to find a quiet place. Try doing that in Beijing. No quiet places in Beijing. Maybe that's why there's only one recording from Beijing. Anyway, so you have to find a quiet place. You have to have a microphone set up. You have to have everything set up. And then sometimes the person that you're interviewing, they don't know what to say. So I was listening to the recordings of my great-grandmother, and I found this place where you can see on the transcript, so Lois is my grandmother, and she's interviewing Bessie Hansen, who's my great-grandmother. They get the recorder set up, and here's what Bessie's reaction is.
Yes, you have to talk to this.
Why, Lois, I'd have to work up an outline and
No. Just go ahead and start with where you were born and that kind of stuff.
So it was a little hard to hear. Not again! So they recorded her a number of times. I have 2 hours of recordings. But the response that we give, a lot of times we have people email us and say, how do I get a good recording? And the answer is just to follow the same process that they followed with my great-grandmother, Bessie Hansen. Just find the quiet room, find the recorder, get everything set up, and then record. You can record for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it doesn't matter. You can't get good stories for 30 minutes, but you can get one good story. And that one good story you can clip out and contribute to the project. So user-created content is difficult sometimes, but people are doing it, and they're creating this map. So to all of the people who have contributed to recording so far, I salute you. Especially if you've contributed to recording of a grandparent. It's not easy, it takes time. The other interesting thing, you look at this map and you see there are some places that are blank, no recordings. And this is, yeah, people are looking at the map and they're like, where's my Fangyan, right? And we get this, I get an email probably every week, somebody asking, hey, so, I just found Phonemica, it's really cool, oh, it's great. But why don't you have my dialect, right? And every time I write back an email and I say, the reason we don't have your dialect is that our content is created by people like you. Go record your grandmother. Go record your uncle who loves to tell off-color jokes. Yeah. Go record someone. You and they are the owners of the Fangyan. You're the only people who can pass it on to the next generation. You're the only people who can make it part of this project. So sometimes that's a little hard to understand, but these are minor questions. The big question that Kellen and I had 2 years ago was not, are we going to get good recordings, but is anybody going to do this, you know? 2 years ago, it was just two of us, and it was good there were two of us. You know, I pushed him when he got discouraged, and he pushed me when I got discouraged. But it was just two people. And that's, finally we realized this is not good. We need to get this project out to the world. And at that point, we started talking to everyone. We talked to linguists at Beida, Beiyu, Nanda, Fudan, maybe some other places. We talked to linguists. We talked to their students. So a lot of them, after we talked, they said, oh, why don't you introduce the idea to our class? And after we introduced to students, we started getting some volunteers. So instead of just two people, then we had, 3, 4, 5. We had a handful of people. But then the other thing is, to me, this is a lesson for any of you who are interested in being entrepreneurs or you want to have a social enterprise. The thing that's hardest, your biggest risk is not having a competitor. It's not having a bad market. Your biggest risk is not socializing, not spreading the word, not talking about your project. And after we started to talk about our project and get it out there, we understood much better how we need to build the product, how we need to talk about the project, and then things started coming together. And so what happened we had our official launch in the spring of this year, and after that launch, we got some media attention. And since that media attention, the project has really started to grow. So now we have several dozen long-term volunteers. We have several hundred people who are contributing recordings like you see on the map. We have 7,000 or 8,000 people who have signed up for the website so that they can contribute content. And we have several 100,000 people who have viewed the project. So I think we finally have the answer. Is anyone going to be interested? Yeah, people are going to be interested, and we're excited about that. So, okay, I want to share with you what we've just started, right? We have 300 recordings. It's just kind of getting started. But I want to share with you what Phonemica is today and what we hope it's going to become in the future. Today what we have great stories. That's the recording that you're supposed to hear.
妹妹嘅家長呢就進咗嚟了，就妹妹 说的一亚文拐骨。
You were supposed to guess where that's from. Can anyone guess where that's from? If you're from Shanghai, you can understand that recording. You can see on the map now that it's not from Shanghai, right? It's not from Shanghai in the city, but it's from west of there, and it's a lovely little story. Let me play this for you. This is actually the Putonghua translation from the website, and the background is that this is just a little clip, and in the previous part, a boy goes to school and he's wearing no shirt, and his teacher asks him, so why aren't you wearing a shirt? And the boy says, a turtle took it. And the teacher and the classmates, they laugh, and the teacher says, well, maybe you should take it back from the turtle. And so this is the next day. What happens?
这两天呢，到了这样，妹妹个家长呢就进出来了，叫妹妹说的一亚文拐骨，儿子到同学过开个了，我妈有问了，问啊，朋友搿种事体伐？这故事觉着不得个了，学堂那个老师呢，村两人呢才去帮着寻，寻到个这个30点钟呢。
The story goes on. You'll have to listen to it on the website if you want to hear the whole thing. This is a great example of one of the interesting things we're getting on Phonemica today. So it's a great story. It's actually a tragic story, and it's a little bit scary. But if you want to take a tour of Phonemica today, this is a great place to start. The second place that I'm going to take you on the tour is not from the physical map, but instead, let's take a look at the map of Chinese, right? Everything Chinese is. What you see up there is the 10 major divisions of Chinese, according to the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. That's the system that we use. And you might look at that and you say, oh yeah, Chinese is really big, right? 10 major divisions. We have Mandarin, Wu, Cantonese. Wow, yeah, it's big. But, and the recording that you just heard is from Wu. But this is just the first layer. I'm going to play you another recording right now that is another recording of Wu. And if you're a Shanghainese speaker, I want you to tell me, can you understand this?
我站呢，用马为国呢，就是用个草案例，有不同的国呢，就是日子。虽然就是日子呢，可是只做些。
I'm not going to play the whole thing right now. If you're a Shanghainese speaker and you do not speak a Southern Wu language, you cannot understand that. You can see this is if you're from anybody from Wenzhou. If you're from Wenzhou, you can you know that recording. It's actually from a small village just north of Wenzhou. But here's the interesting thing that. Well, here let's listen to the whole thing first.
我站呢，用马为国呢，就是用个草案例，有不同的国呢，就是日子。虽然就是日子呢，可是只做些当好时候，我大家改成也蛮好。因为就是日子呢，所以就做些水啊毛豆，或者是在屋里洗洗吃吃。
Yeah, people are always amazed when they hear that. So here's the thing to think about. So if you look at Sinitic, 10 major divisions. Those two recordings that you just heard are both within Wu. And there's immense diversity. All of those 10 major divisions of Chinese are the same. They have immense diversity within them. They have dialects that can't understand each other. And so then you start to see, wow, we're painting this enormous picture of what Chinese really is. But obviously there's much more than Wu in Chinese. We don't have time for a lot, but let me take you one more place on the tour. Let's go way down south, right? There's Hong Kong, and if you go to the west, this should be in Guangxi. And in Guangxi, here's a recording. This is Cantonese. A lot of you will recognize it as Cantonese. It's recognizable if you're from Guangzhou, but this is just an example of a really good story. I love the way this guy tells his story. So the background is the boy, the narrator and his friends are playing on the roof of a hospital. And one of the boys falls in and he drags another boy with him. The narrator breaks his leg, and that's where the story starts.
隻肥仔呢就直接暈齊落個喐，另外一隻有花名喊到馬騮衫嘅籠仔，成個人搭喺我哋兩隻身上，乜事都未有。間屋裏頭呢冷颼颼度，馬騮衫呢就見到好多啲白布，你吸到啲白布嘅台，然後隻馬騮衫計係以前電視啲睇過啊啲實驗室啊之類嘅嘢，計白布底下低啲係燒杯啊、藥瓶啊之類嘅嘢咯。就行過去翻開塊布，次次係睇到對腳係乜嘢，我嗰時有啲遠，唔識係咩事，就見到係馬騮衫嚇到成個人一頓都打落地底，剝開爆嘴啲哭啊喊啊，真係我見佢哭，我跟佢哭。
So, if you can't guess how that story ends, you can go to the website and listen, but you're probably guessing correctly. So that's the end of our little tour of Phonemica today. The one thing I'll say is that all of these recordings, what we really enjoy about the website is we're creating something by the users for the users. So all of the content on Phonemica is licensed under Creative Commons license, so it's free for any non-commercial use. And so it's like building a public building with everybody's individual labor. So every recording contributes to this landscape that we're trying to paint of Chinese, and everyone can use it. So what are our hopes for the future of this map? So today we've got 300 recordings. The way we see it, this is just the beginning. If you look at China, every village, every neighborhood in a big city has its own special dialect. Sometimes they're very close, right? Sometimes you'll have neighboring cities that can't understand each other. Sometimes you'll have neighboring cities where the dialects are very close. But even then, they each have their special vocabulary, their manner of speaking, and we want to record all that. Also, we want multiple recordings. This project is very much not about collecting the one perfect recording of each dialect. Not, okay? This is about collecting many, many stories that paint a complete picture, including language change. So we want grandma, right? We want grandma to tell stories, but we also want her grandkids. We can hear how the language has changed. We want the uncle who never went to school, and we want his nephew who just graduated from Beida. We want the housewife from Hubei who never left her home, and we want her childhood friend who went to work in Shenzhen. We want to hear all of those stories, because only through all of those stories can we paint this complete landscape. So if you multiply that out, thousands of potential dialects, not just in China, but in Chinese-speaking communities around the world. Thousands. And within each one of those dozens of recordings, eventually that map is going to have tens of thousands of recordings. And whose recordings is it going to have? Well, let me ask you, how many of you are good kids? Well, some people have their cell phones, right? How many are good kids, and on your cell phone you have a picture of your parents? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, so pull out your cell phone. I don't have mine, but I'll pretend. Pull out your cell phone, look at the picture of your parents. Look at the picture of your parents and think, how many of your parents' stories are part of you? How many do you remember? How many are you passing on to the next generation? Your children call them grandma and grandpa. Their children call them great-grandma and grandpa. Those stories, with so much change going on, it's very easy for those stories to get lost over time. So what I hope is that map of tens of thousands of recordings will include some of yours, and together we can paint this landscape of Chinese. 谢谢大家。